Okay, this video is about using projects. Let me share my screen. You should be able to see the lecture notes. So first of all, the rationale for using projects, what they can add to your workflow, and then I'm going to cover a case study of creating a set of Canvas question banks very quickly and efficiently once I'd worked out how to put them into a project. So what is a project? It's just a dedicated workspace for specific recurring tasks. Things like if you're doing data analysis or if you're making lecture notes. I mean, I'll show you my project interface so you can see the type of things I have. I also have a project for disposable chats because I like to keep my workspace really clean and tidy. And that's one of the main reasons why I really couldn't get on with Claude, because it doesn't allow you to rename conversations and move things in the same way that you can with ChatGPT. Anyway, so what is a project? It has a file library, customized instructions for the project, which take priority over your personal settings if there's any conflict. And when you're using the project, that is. And then there'll be lots of conversations, sub-conversations within the project. Files can be in all sorts of formats. That's another really nice thing about GPT. Excuse me. So, and all they really are there for is to enable you to use the project when you're on the train or something like that. You don't always have to have the files available on your desktop, sort of thing. And they will be shared, and I'll explain how, in the various conversations of the project as well, if you use the right commands. So the instructions, that's the other part, there's files and there's instructions. They define how ChatGPT behaves just within that project. As I said, they take priority over the personalization settings if necessary. So why should you use projects? Well, it's, as I said, tidy, modular workflow, a file for this, or project for this, a project for that, and so forth. Keeps it tidy. And also it separates context so that you're not, if you don't have projects, you could have the context that you use for one conversation could leak into the context for another conversation. You may well have experienced that already, that you were talking about your experience as a gardener or whatever in one conversation, and then you go to a different type of conversation about your experience as of cooking recipes and things like that, and then it starts introducing all the stuff about the garden. So you don't get the leakage between unrelated threads. As I said, you can upload once and access from anywhere. Only relevant files and context are going to be loaded though, so it stores them, but it's not always going to load. Just because they're there doesn't mean say it's put it into the context window. It's not read it and stored it. And they will be if you want. It tailors the behavior because of the customized instructions, and also you can change and update the instructions at any time. You can add to them using special commands. So users can influence what stays within the scope of the project, but not directly. The information flow comes in three types. You've got the persistent memory in the project instructions and also in those files. That stays as persistent. And then you've got your context window. That's your recent conversation. And I'm going to be talking about reminder blocks when you resume work, and also compressed recaps, which are necessary to keep information in that context window. I'll come on to that later in the video. And then there's something called ephemeral overflow, which means that, the stuff that's dropped out of the context window because there's too much information there and you've run out of megabytes to store it. So what tools have you got to control the information flow? Well, you've got your project instructions and files. These compressed recaps are used to condense long threads when you've got a response that's like 500 words long, and it's used a lot of context window. You may want to condense it, and then you can pin the information back into the context window. And I find that I go back to a project after a few days and I've got a renewed focus. I've stopped work because I've completed a job. And now I've got another job to do, go back to that project, and I'll need to give a reminder block of what continues to be in the context window and what doesn't. Now, it's very confusing. Let's have a look at the project instructions and the files, first of all, because ChatGPT is flipping between different interfaces. And here in the UK, when you use GPT-4, I sometimes get the old interface, which I much prefer, actually. But more often than not, I'm getting the new interface. So I think it depends geographically where you are, what interface you're going to see. On the old interface, there's a separate box for project instructions. You just put them in there like you do for the personalization settings. And then there's a panel for file, upload, delete, and things like that. But the new interface, your first prompt is project instructions. Remember that. And the files attach inside conversations. So you don't have a separate box to upload them. And as I said, during the rollout period for the new interface, which will eventually take priority, you might see the old interface. Now, project instructions, as I said before, a couple of times, they override the personalization settings if there's any conflict. And they evolve within the project. You can change them by saying, update project instructions. That's the keyword, update. And it augments the current instructions. It's going to add what you've just updated to the original instructions and then rationalize it and make it coherent. And then that latest version applies across all the conversations in the project. For example, I wanted to update instructions to optimize the efficiency in a project. And as always, I use the speech to text. I always use the speech to text facility. And so the response, luckily it wasn't in Welsh. There was a rewritten message. I want to adjust how you respond when I start a new conversation in this project. At the moment, you tend to go straight into deep reasoning mode and produce a full answer immediately. That uses time, electricity, and space in the context window. Instead, I'd like you to pause and ask a brief clarifying question before beginning detailed reasoning. This way, the conversation could be steered more efficiently from the start. And what they suggested for update project instructions is here. When a new conversation begins, do not immediately generate a detailed response, etc. So this is just 3 lines in the project instructions. And when I put them in, I got this updated saved memory. The blue box memory in ChatGPT has changed. And so that you know that you've done, you can't see the project instructions. You can ask it to say what the project instructions are now, but unlike the old interface where you could actually see the project instructions, here you can't see them unless you ask for it. Now, what about project files? Well, they're stored at the project level, not at the broader level of ChatGPT, so just within the project, and they're only available within the conversations of that project. A file enters the actual conversation context only when you give its exact name. So remember what the file names are and reference them when you want it to be loaded to the context window. But it doesn't always happen, because if the context window is too full, that automatic loading of a file isn't going to happen, and you have to manually reattach it into the context window as a current conversation. So you might have to do that, may not be able to load it. And then with the 2 interfaces, the old interface, you had this visible file library, and you could upload, list, delete, and manage the files like that. And you could see exactly what stored files you have, whereas here you have no library view. There's no way to delete them either. The only workaround is to start a new project. So yeah, as I say, I'm not keen on the new interface. I prefer the old. Okay, so now let's have a look at a case study. And This is the AI integrated teaching and assessment project that I've been working on for a while to integrate LLMs into my teaching and assessment in the upcoming autumn term modules, which are again going to be completely rewritten on financial risk management and blockchains and crypto assets. And I'm using this project to support my lectures and also particularly design the workshops, also formative and summative assessments, and the whole learning environment now becomes hybrid. So I'm thinking about retitling the module, Learn Financial Risk Management Using Generative AI, because you're learning both in the module. And so far I've used the project for producing workshops on specific tasks to apply LLMs to whatever we've learned that week. Teaching Excel custom GPTs, using those in my lectures, designing AI integrated online assessments like a project, and generating question banks for Canvas learning management system to design quizzes. And most of you will know that you can upload a question bank and then you can draw questions randomly from that bank so students get a different set of questions. Well, I actually used it to produce 28 different stratified sampling question banks designed for stratified sampling. And that's what I'm going to cover in this project case study. So to upload to Canvas, you need a qti.zip file. And so what I did was that I made the conversation, create Canvas importable qti.zip files for online quiz based on each lecture in the module. And each quiz has to have multiple choice, true, false, multi-answer, and ordering questions. I tried the matching, but GPT failed. It tried it again and again, but it couldn't cope with the matching type questions. So I've just got these 4, which is fine. I've got 4 types of questions anyway. And after trial and error, the first day, I managed to get a dummy file, very simple dummy file actually in the end. I had to use 4.0 for it, 4.0 for it. 5, it was too complex for 5, it was overthinking, so I managed it in 4.0. So output was aligned with the Canvas import standards using that dummy file. It was very, very, very quick to upload and implement, and the whole job took 30 minutes once I'd set it all up. I mean, normally I'd take a week to make 310 questions. Obviously, I still haven't edited and checked that, as everything you get, even making these slides, I often ask it to make slides, but then I spend longer editing the slides than it takes making the slides. Anyway, so the automated workflow and the deliverables are like this. There's a step-by-step automation in each lecture notes. So there's topic 1, topic 2, up to topic 8. Actually, I only did 7 for the questions. Upload the lecture PDF and a dummy QTI template. Generate qti.zip for each question type with a certain number of questions, like 20 multiple choice questions or 10 multiple answer questions. And then download and import into a Canvas quiz bank. And then once it's in Canvas, I can structure the quiz as I want. So it's delivered in less than an hour. 28 zip files based on 7 lectures and 4 question types, 310 questions in total. And there are 50 in the tests. And this case study shows how efficient GPT can be for rapid content generation. So this, I'll show you the actual project actually when I finish this part of the lecture notes. But by the end, it was just a couple of seconds to download all those zip files, as you can see. I'd already uploaded the dummy qti.zip previously, so I only had to do the lecture notes at this stage. And then this is the structure of the question bank. So as I said, I only did 7 topics, and topic 1 and 2 are, they take 2 weeks each, so there's more questions there. Topic 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are only 1 2-hour lecture. And then the multiple choice have 2 points per question. True, false, only 1 point per question. Multiple answer have 3 points per question, and so do the ordering. So it comes up to 150 questions to take in an hour. And this is easy. This is my first go. It took an hour to do it. Now I've set it up, I could do it for the different set of question banks for the resits, or more questions if I've got more than 200 students or whatever it is. So that I think I may well just show you now. So let me just ask this and switch to that question bank. So AI integrated teaching and assessment. It's in 5, but I could switch it to 4. But I've still got the old interface. I can, for the project files, I've got the library. I've got half the old interface and half the new one. So I can delete files. But for some of my newer projects, I can't. Anyway, so you can see the files there. This is, I'm using for a different conversation on XLAI. But here's the dummy qti.zips, and here's the lecture notes there. And this is the conversation where I produced so this is my conversation. I want to produce a dummy single question, multiple choice quiz that I can upload, just a dummy one, because I spent so much time, not going for a simple task. You've got to do it really, really. So I looked at the dummy and it was fine. I managed to upload it. So then I say, well, here are 2 files, and I want 10 multiple choice questions based on that lecture. And it did it very quickly. And then I've got another dummy that creating the dummy files was what took a long time, the ones that worked, and I tested them. And then I uploaded that, and I wanted the true false questions, 10 of them, and then I wanted 7 multi-answer, then I wanted 7 ordering, and then another lecture notes, and then it's step 1, they did it all without any prompts, and then I say, excellent, well done, carry on, there's no point to have another prompt, and then it was standing by for another prompt. Say, no, just do it, just proceed. And it went on like this, really, really efficiently. And then I say, okay, make some Beamer slides about what you just did. So it made me Beamer slides, which of course needed quite a lot of editing, but without me having to think through the workflow, it remembered its own workflow, gave me the latex, and these are the slides that I was using to describe the project. There we are, not bad at all, eh? Okay, let's go back to the lecture notes and go on to managing the last part, managing working context in projects. So I think it's the last part of this video. Yeah. So there's another case study, and it's to explain the following workflow. You have to decide what is core memory, store that in project instructions and files. You need to ask for compressed recaps when threads get very long. Remember, otherwise the context window, important early stuff gets dropped. When you start work fresh, create a reminder block and actively drop the clutter you don't want. Forget details about gardening or something like that if you don't want it to come into the context of the current conversation, the continued conversation. So in my updated project instructions, I had to ask what the project instructions were for that project I just showed you. And I'm only showing you a relevant section because it's a big project and it covers producing workshops and other conversations that I mentioned at the beginning of the case study. So these are my project instructions, very nicely updated and filtered as I went through. With examples. It's always good to give numerical examples. So nice project instructions. That's in the core memory, as well as the files that I showed you. And then there is a template for doing a compressed recap, okay? That is how you manage context in long conversations. So make sure you say the project name, recap, the status update, how much is there, and then recap the key decisions, those that are locked in a bulleted list, and then the next steps that are going forward in the conversation in a bulleted list. And then explain what you really want to persist and what you can drop. So here's an example of the lecture 2 quiz that I was doing. AI integrated teaching and assessment, that's the project. What it was doing for lecture 2 was building 80 question, actually I think it was 70 question, 70 question quiz, QTI format, topic 2 notes only, and the decisions are locked in. You must use those, the qti.zip, the XML in that exactly, don't change that code. And also I don't want any mathematical notation in questions because it doesn't come out nicely in Canvas. And then the next steps were to generate 20 MCQs, 20 true false, 15 ordering and 15 multi-answer. So that is 70, not 80 questions in the quiz. And then put them separately into validated qti.zip file because I want that stratified sampling that I showed you in the schema. We're going to have, for example, 5 questions from the MCQs, but only 2 questions from the ordering and things like that, so that students get the same number of questions of each type. And then what you can forget is topic 1 and any side discussion associated with that. And then the reminder block, there's a template for that, where when you're restarting a conversation afresh, you again remind it about the project's name, and then you specify the current goals, you recap your preferences about style and sources and any constraints it has about the scope, what to drop, what to keep, and any summaries that you want it to do periodically. So, for example, this is the reminder block I used when coming back to that project. This is the AI integrated teaching and assessment again for the Canvas quiz. And the current goal was to generate 4 QTI zip files based on FRM lecture notes topic 3.pdf. So specifying that exact file is going to pull it into the context window. And then the constraints and preferences were to follow the dummy QTI structures for each question type, only text, no mathematics, only use topic 3 lecture notes, forget topic 1 and side discussions. Also, I could say forget topic 2 and side discussions, actually. Didn't say that, but that could also be done because it was topic 3. And then I want a compressed recap after completing all 4 QTI zip files for topic 3. So I don't have to do it myself. It's in the reminder block, and automatically that compressed recap will be in the context window for topic 4. So just to go over this loop of the workflow, at the end of the session, you make sure you've got a compressed recap. The next session, you paste a reminder block, and then during a long and complex conversation, you want another compressed recap, maybe. So you go recap, reminder, and that keeps the context clean, efficient, focused, not too token heavy, minimum token loose, maximum clarity, because it controls what persists and what fades away. Okay, so that's the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.